Hello, hello. We are live. We're 1 minute late. Sorry about that. It is just Ethan, Tuesday, June 8th, 7:01 p.m. on the East Coast. As always, we'll give it a couple minutes just to get started. So please jump in, say hello, let me know where you're from, and we'll get started on today's topic and then get to questions. Beth, I see your statement and I see what you've been talking about, and we'll definitely address that soon. So thank you so much for weighing in. Hello, Mary. How are you? Hey, Jeb. Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you. Hi, Kelly in Arizona. Yeah, if you're just joining us, we just have another minute to go before we get started. Hi, Belinda, Director of Anxiety and OCD Treatment Center, Princeton. Have a question for you. Absolutely. Stay tuned, and we'll be getting to questions momentarily. Actually, feel free, if you're going to hang out for the hour, feel free to put it in the comment thread, and we'll definitely get to questions. Hi, Randy. Love my friends in Canada. Absolutely. Well, great question, Belinda. Really great question. Actually, Jess, we'll go ahead and I can definitely give you some ideas and thoughts. We actually have an advocate resource page, which we can definitely put a link to. Hey, Deirdre. Hey, Kylie. Hope everyone is doing well tonight. We'll get started in half a second, just pulling something up. But as always, please say hello. Let me know you're here, where you're from. Hey, Tracy. What was I going to put up? Okay, there we go. So there you go, Belinda. If you click on, if you see iocdf.org /advocates, it looks like you're on LinkedIn, actually. I don't know if these posted in the comment thread on LinkedIn. But Belinda, if you email me at justethan@iocdf.org, you can go ahead and put that up, Jess, if you wouldn't mind. I'll be happy to answer your questions. You can email me right here, and I'm happy to, and I can talk about it later if you're sticking around. I just wanted to quickly give you some info if you didn't have a lot of time, but we can definitely, I can jump back to that for sure and answer any questions. Hi, Love Lana. Good to see you. Hey, Deirdre. Hey, Beth. Oh, Beth from Philly. Okay, cool. All right. Well, please feel free to keep commenting. Let me know that you're here, where you're from. Let's get started. We got a lot to go over tonight. And as always, I want to, hey, oh yeah, I know where you are. Oh, you're in Ohio. I think I knew that, Love Lana. Anyway, lots to go over tonight. Oh, you're my pleasure, Belinda. Anytime. So let's get to the housekeeping. Words would be helpful. It's been a long day. It's okay. We've all had long days. There's S. Allison Goodrich from Florida. Hi, Allison. And Gina, Missouri. Hey, Gene. All right, so let's get this out of the way, and then we'll get into some good conversation. So as you know, my name is Ethan. This is just Ethan. I'm the national advocate for the International OCD Foundation, which simply means I have OCD, and I'm not going to stop talking about it. So quickly, this town hall is intended to serve as educational content. It is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The National OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline and should not be used if you are in distress or feeling unsafe. If you're in a crisis or ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room, call 911, or call the suicide prevention hotline at 800-273-8255. Hey, Heather in Canada, and hi, Maggie in Seattle. And hi, Ethan. Nope, just kidding. That was for me. Hi, Tori from Philly. As always, we want to be respectful and kind of others and create as safe a space as possible. We like to be here to support one another and have open, honest, and vulnerable conversation. But I always like to point out that we are on a variety of social media platforms, and this is being recorded for people to watch down the road. And so just keep that in mind as you talk about personal things. But as always, we want to have the best conversation that we can and be advocates for each other. With that, time to get into business. Please feel free to continue saying hi. Hi, floorboard. I like your name. Please continue to say hi and let me know you're here. Also, feel free to start loading the question thread and the comment thread with questions if you have questions, and we will definitely get to them. Hey, there's Matthias. How are you, sir? Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I have a topic for this evening, and I know there's always lots and lots of questions, and I want to get to all the questions. So I want to touch on this topic. If we feel like talking about it, great. If you got a lot of questions, then we can do that too. I really want to make this about you and what you want to talk about. So I always try to pick topics that I think everybody can benefit from, no matter where you are in your OCD journey. I know that was the case for me. So with that, what I discussed is how to deal with thoughts so scary it feels impossible and irresponsible not to engage in compulsions. So I think we can all relate to that to some extent. Yes, we can all relate to whether you have them, whether you're in treatment, whether it's after treatment. There are sometimes thoughts and a variety of subtypes and symptoms that feel completely irresponsible to ignore, that feel like it's something we should address. It's something that we need certainty around in order to move forward, because the thoughts may have something to do with our own lives, other people's lives, the safety of children, the safety of people that we love and care about, religious, spirituality, faith. Great question. What do I mean? So are there thoughts, we find ourselves stuck sometimes. Hey, Michael Schramm, good to see you, buddy. We find ourselves stuck sometimes with OCD because something at the top of our hierarchy seems really, really scary, and it seems almost irresponsible to engage in ERP because, well, what if it is true? What if this is like Beth? Yes, like when you are afraid if you don't do them, something will happen to family. Matthias wrote, Matthias wrote, I'm so glad we're discussing this topic. Responsibility OCD is actually a category already, and it's so hard to navigate through it. Absolutely. Scrupulosity, responsibility, this idea of, can I even be willing to let there be uncertainty around this possibility, because the stakes, using word stakes, feel so high. And of course, depending on your OCD subtype, they feel high regardless. For all of us, we all think that everybody's subtype sounds easier and to manage and kind of wish we had it. But I think that, hey, Nikki Bradley, hello, my friend in Dublin. And I just have to read her comment. Feeling great after a successful day of ERP. I just wanted to mention that. So to give people hope, ERP definitely works 100%. I love that, Nikki. So my point is, when you hear of other people's symptoms or subtypes, it can seem less scary or not that big a deal, but I promise you that, it's just as painful and just as hard for those individuals, and can seem just as scary and seem just as life-threatening, even if it's friends that, can't write a paper because they have to go back and reread or erase words or walk through a doorway 3 times or tap on the side of a door, tap on a door frame. Deirdre, I live to make you laugh. So that is why I'm here. Always got to infuse humor in all of this. So I want to bring this up because I want to ask you all a question, which is, what is your obstacle? What is your thought, if you have one, or what is a thought that you were able to move past with therapy? But what is something that you felt like the stakes were high, it was too scary, too important, too irresponsible to ignore? And I can give you an example right now as you're writing this. So for me, at my worst, I was afraid that I had hit my head and I had a brain bleed. So, and I was pretty sick, as I'm sure we can all relate. And I know for me that, when I go to my therapist's office, or I was an intensive outpatient or residential or any of these programs, and they told me to do ERP, I felt like we were ignoring the obvious, which was I need to go to the hospital and get checked out. We can't mess around with this. I might have something wrong with my head, and I could die. So what's the question here? Why are we gambling with this? Why are we shooting craps? Like it's a no-brainer. Like, you don't want me to die. I don't want to die. So let's not take a chance here. Let's make sure this thing isn't a problem, and get the help that I need. Right. So that's my example. And for months and months and months, I had such a hard time buying into ERP because I felt like my life was at stake, literally. Right. Literally, my life was at stake. I was going to die. I remembered hitting my head. What if maybe brain aneurysm, bleed, probably, kind of, sort of. So I'm curious to you, what are some examples? And Beth, I see your comments, and I will definitely get to them. So thank you. So I'm curious. Give me some examples of some sort of thoughts that feel like I'm not willing to take a chance with these, or success stories as well. We like all stories. Health OCD. Hi, Mike. Good to see you. Unbelievable. I've not gotten past that. So health anxiety. So before I switched, before I had the health thing, before I had the head thing, I had health as well, Mike. And for me, it was, well, what's the point of trying? So this goes a level deeper, which was, what's the point of doing this treatment if I'm going to die anyway from this illness? I was pretty convinced. I expected I had everything. A headache was a brain tumor. A fever was meningitis. I was pretty certain that one of these things was going to kill me, right? So what is the point of even trying this? What is the point of getting excited about life if I'm just going to get sick and be miserable and die anyway? What is the point in that, Tracy wrote, I always worry about bad things happening to me or those I love, and it causes extreme unease and discomfort, making a bad choice that is irreversible, running out of time, etc. Absolutely. Beth wrote, too much anxiety and to try and overcome compulsion. I hear you there. There's something wrong in my body and no one will find it. Great one, Diana. I'm not celebrating that, but I totally relate to that. Thank you so much for the honesty, guys. Cindy wrote, what if I shoot my kids? I have or had harming OCD. Absolutely false memories in there. Hi, Cindy. Oh, hi. Sorry, you were saying hi. Heather wrote, I feel selfish if I don't give in and check every possible hazard in my parents' house. Right. Irresponsibility. You are irresponsible if you don't look for that certainty, protect yourself or protect the people that you love. Heather wrote, I've got contamination issues. I'm always afraid I'm going to get food poisoning and health OCD as well. Stroke, brain tumor. Heather, I feel like you were sharing OCD. Actually, if I had to pinpoint one OCD, and I talk about it a lot, that symptom that still is pretty loud in my head, it is definitely food contamination and food poisoning. It's something I challenge daily for sure, and it can definitely feel irresponsible. So I appreciate that. Always terrified I will have a heart attack. Check my pulse a lot. Absolutely, Michael. In fact, Katie and I just went out of town this weekend, and I went on a really fast 3-mile hike, and my heart was pounding, and I had the very same thoughts. So needless to say, I hope, if anything, in this last few seconds, I've showed you that OCD is not special, right? We are not special because of our OCD. OCD, we all share this stuff. Our OCD is not unique. And it's important to keep that in mind, because the more unique we think our OCD is, the more we get in our way of getting better, because then, well, why is that going to work for me? My OCD is special. My OCD is different. My OCD is unique. So thank you all for sharing. This is great stuff. Absolutely, Cindy. And so many more harming OCD thoughts. Shooting my kids was just one. I totally understand that. Tracy wrote, checking outlets to make sure everything is off that could cause a fire, hair appliances, etc. Absolutely. I have a good friend who's deathly afraid of accidentally causing fires. So as we can see, there's no shortage of specific things that in theory seem like, well, why wouldn't I want to make sure this isn't going to happen? Because if it does, people could get hurt, people could die, right? Or what if I'm even worthy of this because of the things that I may have done? And there's my friend from Australia. Hey, Selwyn, good to see you. Yep, stove, absolutely. Okay, so why do I bring this up? Because I think that dealing, coping, strategizing, managing these particular aspects of OCD can be really, really, really tricky. But if you do them, then it is sort of your clear path to wellness. And I say clear loosely because it can still be challenging, but it is your path, right? It is your guide to wellness. Now, you may all be sitting here, and I always want you to challenge me. If you don't agree with something, let me know. If you have an idea, let me know. This is a two-sided conversation, or actually a one-sided versus 50-sided, but it's multiple sides. I'm sure Deirdre's rolling her eyes at me, but I appreciate that too. That just means I'm making her laugh in some way. So how do we deal with this? How do we deal with worst case scenarios happening? Exactly, Tracy. I think the first thing that we have to do, and this all comes, I'm just speaking from personal experience. Hey, Amanda in the UK. Thank you for tuning in late. Appreciate you. And Pamela wrote, you're right. My therapist asked me, what makes you special? Why are you responsible for keeping the entire world and its inhabitants safe? I don't know. I wish I didn't notice these dangers. That's absolutely right. OCD can feel is very selfish. It can make us feel very, very powerful, that we are completely responsible for everyone in our lives and what they do and how they do it and keeping them safe. Mike wrote, my response prevention with my therapist to call my doctor, worst headache ever, bleeding, high fever. So like you said earlier, how irresponsible to ignore symptoms. Hi, Kim Hughes. Hi, Stacy Rosenthal. Good to see you all. So let's talk some more about this. Let me ask you all a follow-up question, because maybe we can answer this for yourselves, which is, what happens if you don't look for certainty? And I'm not talking about you'll get more anxiety, but what happens if you don't compulse? What will happen? Or maybe if you do have, if it's just anxiety, but in your mind, what will happen? Are these things going to happen? Is that what you believe? Do you just not like the feelings associated with it? Yep, Tracy wrote, I have to tell my family members to be careful so something bad doesn't happen, to relieve. Ah, great. Cindy wrote, anxiety, ruminating. Yep, that definitely happens. That's right. OCD knows what we are afraid of and uses it against us. So OCD is ego dystonic, meaning that it attacks our values, the things that we love most, and typically things that we care deeply about. And like our kids, like our families, like our jobs, like our religion, like our faith, right? Deirdre wrote, I will end up compulsing even more so. Okay, that's if you ignore. I think, how irresponsible to waste my doctor's time. Someone else needed her. Absolutely. What happens if we don't compulse, and if we just it attacks self-worth a lot too. Absolutely, Selwyn, and I'll get into that. It absolutely attacks self-worth. I can't function. I will just stay in bed all day with anxiety. Okay, this is all good. The reason I ask you is because it's important to identify, yes, our family, loved ones, faith. Yeah, absolutely, Cindy. It's important to identify what will happen. I'm going to love Lana. Okay, I want to please my creator and one day see God face to face and have God be proud enough of me to keep me. So I need to know exactly what is very right, or if something is something God will reject. Religious scrupulosity is really difficult because you're not just, you just said it, me for after this life. That's right. I was just about to say that, love Lana, right? You're not just responsible for what happens now, but in eternity. And how would I possibly gamble with eternity? I can't afford to gamble with eternity. I have to make sure that I have all the certainty in the world moving forward, so I know that I have an eternity in heaven by God's side. Heather wrote, my OCD tells me I'm a horrible person, which speaks directly to Selwyn's comment that it attacks self-worth. Kim Hughes wrote, I feel the dread of something bad happening. Matthias wrote, I think it's I keep going over your name. It's either, I'm not going to obsess about your name. I'm not. I'm just going to call you Matt. Matthias wrote, guilt feels so real and strong. It feels as though we will carry that guilt for the rest of our lives. Tracy wrote, can't stop thinking about it. We fail if we don't compulse. That's powerful. Kelly, what do we fail at? I'm curious. Finally happier that I have these thoughts of lust, and sometimes I feel real lust and I don't want to do a compulsion, but I feel scared because I feel dirty and I feel like I really do lust. Okay. I want to point something out to you all, which is if I look back at these comments, there's a big word in here that we use a lot, and it is the word feel. Feel is used in almost everybody's sentence or example of this. I feel this, I feel that, I'll feel anxiety. I feel anxiety, ruminating. I like to look at feelings a second. Mike, so years ago, habituation was the goal, but now it's just tolerating the stress. So that's confusing to me. Okay, I'll get to that, Mike, and help you tweeze that out. Pamela would have attacked this type of OCD, saving everyone by standing with the loose rug or trip hazard and waiting till the suds drops. Yep, some good exposures there. So let me break this down into simpler terms, because I know we have questions too that we want to get to. Ignoring these things that seem where the stakes seem so high is irresponsible. Seems irresponsible, right? Because of what may happen. That uncertainty of what may happen feels so intolerable because we get a ton of anxiety and a ton of discomfort, and we are overwhelmed with feelings and emotions. And it's one thing to think something, but that combo, there's a 1-2 punch, thinking and feeling. When the feeling happens, then it must be real. If I'm feeling it, it must be true. Thinking it, we can think it must be true too. We always say thinking isn't fact, but thinking is definitely tricky. But when we feel it, right? We always hear, just follow your gut. Follow your gut. What does your gut say? Man, that is the worst thing you can say to someone with OCD, because what I think my gut says, right? If we judge by feeling, Tracy nailed it. Yes, if you feel it, then it must be true. Cindy wrote, yes, makes us feel so guilty, responsible for all emotions, thoughts, feelings, just overwhelming. Stacy beautifully wrote, a feeling is just a feeling, not a fact. Absolutely. Feeling is just a feeling, not a fact. A thought is just a thought, not a fact. So why is this so hard? Why is this so hard? If a feeling is just a feeling and a thought is just a thought, and none of those things are facts. I know, Beth, I hate when people snap out. I say people snap out of it too. It's really annoying. We overcomplicate treatment because we are so afraid that the fear is going to happen, that the fear is going to be a reality. Mike wrote, thought action fusion is difficult. So for those of you that may not know what thought action fusion is, it's this idea that if I think it, that the action is fused with it. So thinking and action are the same and they're together. And so that's thought action fusion, meaning if I think I hit my head, then I did hit my head, and so forth in my example. So let me get to the meat of this. I have a few notes here. I actually prepared for this. I know, rare. Why is it complicated? Because we cannot afford to let these things happen, because if they do, well, then the guilt, the emotion that we feel now, that's nothing in comparison to if I shoot my kid, my father dies because I didn't do X compulsion, if I don't turn around for that bump in the road because I hit someone, I could have saved them, they could be alive. If I don't pray, the act of compulsing seems so easy in the face of what if the reality happens? What's a little prayer? If it means life in heaven, for all eternity. And Trace wrote magical thinking, praying, and thought action fusion, hyper responsibility. Magical thinking these are great terms, guys. Magical thinking is when, like I said, an example of magical thinking would be, if I don't wear my blue shirt today, my mom will die. Taking two things that don't relate and associating with them, right? So if I don't tap 3 times on this desk, I'm going to break my leg, or anything along those lines. And Pamela wrote, Ethan, that's it. What if the cause? And Aurelio, I see your comment, your question. I will get to it. I promise. I'll go from the beginning, but I'll try to get to it. So here's the thing. You have to look at your life right now. You need to take a snapshot of your life, a Polaroid snapshot of your life, and turn that picture around and look at it and decide if that's where you want to be right now. If the life that you're living right now is where you want to be. And if it isn't, then there are specific changes that we need to make in order to get to the life we want. So how do we do those changes? I'm sorry to hear that, Ellery, and I'm sorry, Aurelio. How do we get there? We have to be willing to let our biggest fears exist in reality in order to get better. We have to let our biggest fears be a possibility that it may happen in order to get better. How do you do that? How do you do that when we're dealing with all of the things that have such high stakes? Death, family, kids, religion, faith. How do we do it? Number 1, accept the diagnosis. You have OCD. You have OCD. You have OCD. And there's nothing wrong with that. No different than any other disorder or disease in terms of stigma. And Aurelio, I did end up in a mental hospital, and that's why I tell my story. So you have OCD. What does that mean? That means that we don't look for certainty. We accept the diagnosis. We trust that we probably didn't, although we may, or may have done, or may do, but all in an effort to get our life back, to regain our life, or in my case, live my life for the first time. Now, there's lots of things. There's associate. What if you don't deserve it? What if you don't deserve treatment? What if I've done all this? What if it is an OCD? What if I did all this horrible stuff and it's true? Why do I even deserve treatment now? This stuff gets muddy. It gets deep. It gets convoluted. It gets complicated. It's a lot. And I know that from personal experience, obviously, but also from talking to so many of you. But we have to accept the diagnosis, and we have to look at our lives and go, what is it that I have to do to get my life back? So Aurelio asked me a question, and this is totally pertinent. He asked, what helped you the most to break free? And the reason I brought it up is what helped me the most to break free from my OCD was letting the possibility of my biggest fear exist and to stop trying to have certainty around preventing it. I broke free because I was willing to let my biggest fear exist without trying to control that it won't happen. Embrace the uncertainty. Stop trying to get certainty, which, P.S., most of what we're talking about, we don't have a lot of control over. And that's a big part of this process. What do we have control over? Our focus, our behavior, how we react to our thoughts and our feelings. That's it. So here's the specific example, Aurelio. And thank you, Beth, for saying that. Beth wrote, I saw your 2014 keynote speech. So powerful. I laughed, I cried, amazing journey. And I talk about this in my speech, but Aurelio, if you haven't seen it, I was convinced 98% that I probably, if I went about my life, I would accidentally hurt myself. I was going to accidentally hurt myself. Well, how can you live your life if you're accidentally going to hurt yourself? Can't take the chance. Except the irony is that by compulsing constantly, I was hurting myself way more than anything I may or may not do because I wasn't living at all, right? The giant paradox. In an effort to be certain that our biggest fears don't happen or didn't happen, we create the reality we're afraid of most. I was afraid of dying. I wasn't living. And it's terrible and it's scary and it's all of the things that you guys are saying. You're all saying absolutely true. But when I realized that the real death for me was going to come from OCD and that it was worth gambling or rolling the dice or whatever you want to call it to take a chance that this fear that I had at the time, it was like, I'm going to hit my head on purpose. I'm going to bash my head in. I'm going to just go crazy. I'm going to wail in my head. And I couldn't remember if I did it. I had false memories. I remembered, or did I remember? I wasn't sure. I'm going to let that be there. I'm going to let that be there. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to get out of bed. I'm going to follow my values. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to use all the skills and tools that I learned. Exposure response prevention, acceptance and commitment therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, mindfulness, meditation, exercise. I'm going to take all of that and I'm going to put it into practice. I'm going to put it into practice, and it's going to be scary, and I cried every day, and I was on the phone with my therapist 400 times a day. But I let the reality be there. I let the possibility that I might be there. I stopped trying to find the certainty that I didn't. I stopped trying to control the outcome. I lived my life with the doubt. And as scary as that was, all of a sudden, it started to get easier and easier and easier. And I always tell people it was a lot like you notice a pain somewhere. For my friends with health anxiety, right? You notice a pain somewhere, and you're like, oh, crap. You notice it for 3, 4, 5 days. Where do I go? Where do I do? Do I do something? Do I not? And about a week later, you're like, oh, yeah, I had that pain. Where was that? That's how my OCD felt, where one day I was just like, I had that thing. Wonder what happened to it. The lesson in that is not specific to my subtype or symptom. It's applicable to every one of you. Every single one of you can live into the uncertainty. Live with the doubt. Let the possibility of the greatest fear be real. Whether it happened in the past, whether it's going to happen, we're just going to let that be there. We're going to accept the diagnosis of OCD. We're going to believe that the individuals in our lives, whether they're therapists, friends, family, they want to see us get better. They don't want us to get worse. They don't want us to die. They don't want us to go to hell. And I'm not saying these things to reassure. Okay? People want us to get better and live our best life, but the only way to do that is go through the fire, not around the fire. And so for all of you, and Mike just said I would gamble on myself, no problem, but the impact on my family is why I make sure I'm okay. That's right, Mike. But And somebody else might say, well, it's not about me. What if I kill my children? What if I shoot my child, as somebody said earlier? What if I hurt someone I love? I would die 1,000 times, but I'm not willing to risk my family. But Mike, you're here, which tells me that you've either self-identified with OCD or you have a diagnosis of OCD, which means in some place it's a doubt. It's not a certainty. It's a doubt. What if? What if, what if, what if, what if, what if? And the question I would throw back at you, Mike, is can your family afford to have you ruled by OCD? Can you give them who you are, their values? They're your values, I would imagine, right? Your family, your kids, or whatever your circumstance is. What's the better relationship with your family? Because right now, I guarantee you your relationship with OCD is better. Unfortunately, right? That's with my case. That was my case. So what is the alternative? We take the chance. We take the chance. You know what, man? There's not there. You could do a scan every single day. I wanted one. I heard of the full body scan. I'm like, I'll take one. I thought to myself, if I get rich enough, I'd buy an MRI and a CAT scan machine. I just do them myself all the time. Yeah, dead serious. I was like super excited. You know, the gamble's betting on OCD, and the certainty is that betting on OCD is not a gamble. It's certain. You're certainly going to not have a life if you give into OCD. And so just like that, right? We have to let the fear be there. And with the thoughts are thoughts. Like everyone's saying, but, or this, or, but yeah, but I have a family and, you know, I don't, they're all thoughts. Thoughts are thoughts are thoughts are thoughts. Well, I'm too sick. That's a thought. It's been too long. That's a thought. Well, ERP didn't work the first time. That's a thought. Yeah, but all those thoughts had feelings. Those are feelings. Feelings aren't true. When it comes to OCD, when I say feelings don't matter. They're valid. They're always valid. But we don't listen to feelings when it comes to OCD. I threw a bunch at you. Maybe we'll keep going with this topic. I definitely want to get to questions. And I know I rambled a little bit. I apologize. But I get super passionate. Oh, if you asked me a question prior to 7:13 p.m., ask it again, because the comments, I lost everything from 7:13 and before. So I apologize. Let me go from there. Let's see here. I saw somebody ask a question about, well, what if it does happen? What if it does come true? And I'm not reading this. That's a great question. I think I'll find it, but it said something about, what if it's cool? Was OCD right? Was it coincidence? What was it? You know what? Food poisoning. Food poisoning. And by the way, I know that there's a lot more to dissect here and unpack, especially around identity, self-worth, who I am, not deserving, guilt. You know, is it too late to get better because of what I've done in the past or what I may have done in the past? I'm not ignoring any of that. There's a lot to unpack. And so please know that I know that all those topics exist too. This is very layered and it's not a one size fits all approach, right? We have to address a lot of these things, but I'm trying to hit the bigger points. But food poisoning. I could get food poisoning. What if my OCD was right? What if I knew I shouldn't eat something, but I did it anyway because, you know, I didn't want to go against OCD, and I wasn't sure. And then sure enough, got sick, got terrible food poisoning, and I was miserable. What then? Was OCD right? And does that mean I should listen to OCD all the time? The answer is, it's going to happen. There's going to be coincidences. but I would eat questionable food all the time before going back to a psychiatric hospital. I would. I just would, right? So I'm going to take the chance. I'm going to take the chance because I'm not going back there. I'm not doing that again. And I'm not perfect at it. And I've compulsed. You know that. I'm not perfect, but I sure as heck have a very stringent attempt at not compulsing as much as possible. And if chicken looks questionable to me, may eat it, may not. I'm just not interested in, I would rather have food poisoning than going back to a life where OCD dictated every move that I make and every decision that I made. Let me tell you another something. Big question here, and I know you all have it, is like, how do I know when it is OCD and when it's not OCD? And it's hard to tell the difference, and I can't tell. A few weeks ago or a month ago, I told a story about I hadn't done some major compulsions in a while, and I struggled with some turkey meat, and I thought it was bad, and it smelled bad, and I ate it, but then I threw it away, and I compulsed around it, and blah, 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 blah. Fine. I think about a week ago, I went to make a scramble for my girlfriend and I opened some smoked salmon, which I love, and the smell hit me, and it sort of smelled smoked salmon-y, but it also smelled like burnt plastic. I threw it away. Was not even a question. And it was so interesting to experience food that had gone bad because there was no question in my mind. It was like, this is bad. I'm not eating this. It wasn't, I don't know. Does that smell bad? I'm not sure if that smells bad. Well, it doesn't. Well, it's kind of, it might. And that's OCD all day long. If it smells, if it looks, if it tastes, if it's a duck, it's OCD, right? But like when you know, like I've been to the hospital a couple times since I got better in the last 10 or 11 years to the ER. I didn't weigh the situation. I was like, I think I broke my foot. I'm going to go to the ER. Or I can't stand up straight because I'm in so much pain. I'm going to go to the ER. Right? The OCD stuff is like, oh, I don't know. My chest is a little achy and it feels a little weird and maybe it's heavy and I'm not sure and it could be and do I? And I know it's all very difficult to tease out. But when we trust our ability to make decisions beyond the OCD, we usually make the right decisions. But it's the OCD that gets in there and gets all messy and really screws things up for everybody. Kim wrote, I've been working on identifying what is reasonable and what is OCD. It's been helping a lot. I think that's great. Something that also helped me, and I've talked about it, is when I was in treatment, I just assumed everything was OCD. Took the work out of it, and then when I got into life, I started teasing out, because once you do that, the OCD voice becomes very obvious. It's like, oh, that's OCD, that's not OCD. Not all the time, but a lot of the times. But I love that, Kim. Let me go back up to some questions. Let's see here. And again, I apologize if I didn't answer some of your questions. Finally, Happy wrote, I have these thoughts of lust, and sometimes I read this before. I feel real lust, and I don't want to do a compulsion, but I feel scared because I feel dirty, and I feel like I really do lust. And that makes sense, right? But we have to let the possibility that you do be there in order to regain your life. Now, when I say this, and hear me loud and clear, when I say this stuff, if you have the ability, work under a clinician or a therapist, because you need support with this stuff. I'm not saying that doing ERP and getting better isn't impossible without a therapist, or a treatment provider of some sort, right? But, doing these things, there's lots more skills and tools and things that you need to learn in order to put these into practice. I really just wanted to get you thinking about maybe potentially accepting, letting the things that feel of the highest stake come true in order to regain your life. Because again, OCD attacks the things we love most. True story. When I have kids, I would leave my kid or kids with an individual with pedophilia OCD before anybody else all day long. Safest person I could ever leave my kids with. because OCD attacks the things we love most. That person loves kids more than anything, and there's no way they would ever touch my child. Now, I would never say that because that's reassurance, right? But that's the thing. And you have to think about what you're losing and what the people around you are losing in your effort to get certainty. I'm trying to keep up with your comments down below, so I keep scrolling down. I apologize. Just want to make sure I'm staying on topic. Lots of comments here, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me scroll down a little bit and keep up with. Okay, let me just here's what we're gonna do, because I talk way longer than I usually do. So let me just scroll up. Please keep commenting. I'm gonna go from fairly recent, and we'll go from there. So if you had a question, you answered it, say before 7:40, re-ask it, and I'm going to go from 7:40. So Mike Snow wrote OCDI 1997 McLean. I did get a life after McLean, married, family, but as my therapist says, I drive with the brakes on. It's a great analogy. You know, Mike, and I know we talked before a little bit, you can't negotiate with OCD. I think we all want to live in the gray a little bit, get to that certain point, right, where we're managing enough and we got pieces of our life back, and we're functioning better, and that's good enough. And that's why I wanted to talk about this thing, the thing that keeps us from really, really jumping over that cliff and into this place that we can't see, but it's really amazing. Because I can tell you firsthand that the most beautiful part of treatment in life happens in that last little bit, right? Up till that, it's about functioning. But after that, it's about joy. It's about serenity. It's about peace. It's about living present-minded. It's about experience. Let's see here. Melissa asks, how do we deal with avoidance? Not wanting to do anything so I don't have to do the routines. You can post that, Jess, at 7:41 p.m. How do we deal with avoidance? Not wanting to do anything so I don't have to do the routines. So yeah, this is super common, Melissa. We don't want to, why do I even want to deal with the compulsions in the first place? I'll just avoid it, right? So the idea is you don't avoid, and you also don't compulse, right? Because we're avoiding because we're assuming that if we don't avoid, then we have to do the rituals, we have to do the compulsions, because that's our answer to the scary thoughts and feelings and things, or the triggers, I should say, right? But in reality, you have a choice, and I say that very, very humbly and compassionately to you. For anybody that doesn't know, compulsions are a choice. They feel like, when somebody says, stop doing that, your immediate response is, I can't, I have to, I can't. I have to check, I have to look, I have to tap, I have to wash my hands, I have to turn around, I have to. But the reality is I want to. I want to. And it may, I know on the surface is, no, I don't want to. This is horrible. But you want to because you don't want to feel the crap, right? But it stops working because the more you do it, the less it works, and so forth and so on. So the question is, how do we deal with avoidance? We start to be okay with living with the uncertainty, the doubt, the discomfort, the anxiety. And we understand that we don't have to ritualize. Again, that comes with a lot of treatment, a lot of therapy, a lot of understanding, a lot of practice, a lot of systematic practice. It's as I say all the time, it's like working out over time, right? I can't go to the gym and look like Mark Wahlberg overnight. I have to take it slow. And so, if you're avoiding it, let's say you're avoiding everything 24/7 right now. That means that we're going to not avoid for 5 minutes. Out of 24 hours, we're not going to avoid for 5 minutes starting out. And we're going to do that for a little bit of time, right? And then we're going to increase it to 1 hour. We'll do that for a little bit of time, right? It's all about little wins. But we have to change, we have to reframe, right? We have to change our thinking, which means that not avoiding doesn't have to mean compulsions and rituals and routines. It can mean living your life, right? We just have to get there through a lot of hard, painful work, unfortunately. Great question. Thank you, Melissa. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Beth heard I had food poisoning. It's horrible. You know, ironically, I've had food poisoning twice in my life, and both times everything tasted delicious. So you got me. Every time it smells weird, I'm like, oh, I can't eat this, and I've never had a problem. But both times I had it, I didn't detect anything. It was amazing, and I got sick. So there you go. Life has a sense of humor. OCD stops us from living. Absolutely. Our world becomes small. Absolutely. Ethan, you did an amazing job on describing the recovery process. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that. Didn't eat out for weeks. Believe it or not, I got sick on deep dish pizza in Chicago. I got terrible food poisoning. But you can't stay away from pizza for that long. So, Renee wrote, I don't know if there's a question. Renee wrote, when it comes to rumination, here's a big lesson I learned. Okay, great advice. You have to practice acknowledging the initial thought, obsession, and then all the banter afterward, compulsion. The compulsion, rumination, should be stopped. And as easy as that is to say, much harder to do, you have to practice stopping the compulsion, which is in your control. Beautifully said, Renee. Thank you for that. Thoughts, obsessions, involuntary. We cannot control our thoughts. We can focus them, but if we tune into ourselves, we are probably thinking of 1,000 things right now. We can't control our feelings. They happen and we feel things. We can control our focus and behavior, and that's what Renee is talking about. Can't control thoughts, obsessions, can't control feelings, anxiety, but we have a choice as to whether we can compulse or not. And I'm in no way, and we've all said this, I'm in no way trying to oversimplify this process. It is a simple process, but it's really hard to do. It takes a lot of time and it takes guts, and you're all so strong for sharing. Okay, so I want to just make that clear. I'm in no way simplifying, like, guys, come on, this is so easy. I'm in no way saying that. If you know my story, it wasn't easy. It still isn't easy. But it's important to note that the response to your thoughts and feelings, how you respond, that's the secret sauce, right, to dealing with OCD and management and recovery. It says Kim's, good question, Kim. Did Kim ask a question? Did I miss Kim's question? I like good questions. Looking back, I don't know that I see a question from Kim. I see I've been working on identifying what is reasonable and what is okay. Great comments. Aurelia wrote, thoughts on when to go to a psychiatric hospital. How do we know when it's time? Great question. I can't answer that. Unfortunately, I can't answer that. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor, though I played one on TV. You've heard me say that many times, but true story. The answer is you need to talk to an expert. You need to talk to an expert, But here's what's interesting. Here's been my experience with OCD is my other big fear was, what if I was psychotic? And typically, if you're asking that question, you're not psychotic. So, my suggestion for anyone is, what they're really struggling is exposure response prevention, treatment, therapy, really trying, really diving in, right? Go to the IOCDF.org website, check out all the resources. If you're already doing that, you need to talk to, professional about whether, that needs to be a step for you. But with OCD, there's a lot of different places in the middle, before you should go there. And incidentally, and again, I am not an expert, so I am not giving anybody medical advice, but I can tell you that most acute psychiatric facilities are not equipped to deal with OCD because they have no clue how to treat it. So I was in them one time, and I've told this story and I'll tell it again. One time I needed to be there because I was off all my meds and I was just in a terrible, terrible place. And we were still having doubts about diagnosis and things like that. The other 2 times were voluntarily because I felt safe. It was a compulsion essentially for me. But they have no clue how to treat OCD. No clue whatsoever. So, so I guess the quickest answer I could give you is, if you're a danger to yourself, if you're a danger to others, if you're having thoughts about, if you're having thoughts about suicide or completing suicide, or you've come through with a plan, or you just don't want to live anymore, like, that's when you should go to a hospital or call 911, right? But if we're kind of looking for, like, when's that next thing, you need to turn to treatment and therapy and stuff like that. But I preface all of that by saying everybody's experience is unique. Talk to an expert or a professional. But I'm always here to support as best I can. Oh, all the comments just updated. Hey, Ethan, just wanted to say I appreciate your story. I've been in ERP for 1.5 years, and when it seemed darkest, your story spoke a lot to me. If I can recover, then anyone can. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And that is the truth. That is the truth. If I can recover, anyone can. And I've seen so much recovery. You know, my story is extreme, but it's, again, not unique. Unfortunately, it's not unique. But I've talked to individuals that are doing amazing things that you know, mine is just one example. And I could probably pair, you know, a person with that's really struggling with somebody that did the exact same thing that is now better, which we should all take hope from. And trust me, I sat there looking at somebody like me going, that's never going to be me. That's nice. That's great. My OCD is different. You don't know what I'm going through. My situation's different. My OCD is special. It's not going to happen for me. Just keep talking. Yeah. That's great. That's great. That's great. I believed all that. I was in those chairs, doubting everything, thinking special thought, all that stuff. But I am here. And I'm here with you. And we're in this together. So let's get going, yeah? I know we're closing in on 8 o'clock. Let me just look for a few more questions. I know I did a lot more talking today than questions. Mike wrote, love this channel. First time commenting. Thank you for commenting, Mike. Seeking certainty is my life from the time I awake in the morning to the time I fall asleep at night. It's a nightmare. It is a nightmare, which is why we have to hand it over. You know, it's scary to do, but the lesson that I took away from my own treatment was this idea of, well, I guess I'll deal with a brain bleed when it happens. I had this image, these really intrusive thoughts of like, what would happen if I had it? And I would have epilepsy, I would have seizures, and I would vomit blood. Sorry, trigger warning. Sorry about that. But all this violent stuff, right? And finally it was like, I'm going to live every day until it happens. So if that means work, now I could easily think, well, I'm not going to go to work because that's going to happen or could happen. I'm not going to go out with a friend because that could happen or might happen. So I'm not going to do those things. But then I already lived that life, right? Where I skipped all this stuff. So maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but I'm going to live my best life until it does. I'll face it when it happens. Hopefully I can handle it, but I'm not going to try to handle it before it happens. Right? I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. It's really hard to do, but I applied that little skill that I learned then to everything. Like I will deal, and it's hard. And I'm in no way saying that I don't try to get certainty around certain things and try to make things happen the way I want them to. And of course I try all that. But my general rule of thumb that I try desperately hard to live is that I will deal with it when it comes. And until then, I'm going to live. And I have to tell you that I've been doing that now for 11 years. And I've never regretted it. In fact, if I look back now and think about had I lived into all my OCD fears, how much life I would have missed. And I had already missed years. Avoidance is hard. Avoidance, Ethan, it is a lot of hard work. Why is ERP and OCD counseling so expensive? Only could afford like 4 sessions. Thank you. It is. It's not as accessible as it should be. The IOCDF's goal, my goal, other advocates' goal, right? Affordable, effective, accessible treatment for everyone. And so, yes, it is expensive, and not everyone can afford it. And that's a really, for lack of a better word, shitty thing, right? And other physical treatments and things like that. There's lots of stuff that is just not accessible. One thing I will tell you is that if you live in the States and the UK, currently, a really great lower cost option is NoCD, NOCD. It is they're a huge OCD community, but they also offer virtual teletherapy with ERP specialists. They're all psychologists, therapists, licensed in every state. And a number of them take insurance. NoCD has insurance deals with whatever. So you also get a free 15-minute consultation. No, they're not paying me to say this, but it's a great option for many people. So you can download the NoCD app in the Apple Store and Google Play and check that out. We're at 8 o'clock. I'm going to look for one more question. Delia, I see you talking about existential OCD. I'll give out my email at the end. Why don't you email me about that and we can talk for sure. Great question. Is virtual therapy as effective as in person? So the research is still out on that, but we know for a fact it is as effective as in person. And you may ask why. Think of it as free home therapy. Before COVID, what would you have paid a therapist to come to your house, right? Now we get you in your environment where you're mostly triggered, right? And we also get some insight. Well, I'm not a therapist, but they get some insight into how things are looking and what things are doing. The early studies out of Columbia have shown that virtual therapy is very, very, very effective. And so there's still a lot of research, obviously, because of COVID and post-COVID into just how effective, but we know that it's as effective as in person. Now, that doesn't mean that it is as effective for you, because everybody has specific needs. So in person may be a better option for you. But by the way, I've been virtual for the last 10 years. That's a lie. I've been virtual for the last 2 years since I've lived in Atlanta. And although we don't talk about ERP all the time, it's wonderful. So, and thank you, Jess, for putting a link to treatmyocd.com. With that, hi, Valerie Andrews. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, since I didn't get to a lot of questions, and I'm sorry about that, but I hope what I said was helpful. Don't reassure me. Just say it wasn't. That'd be so triggering if everybody was like, this sucked. I don't get anything that you said. First thing I'll do is post my email address, which is justethan@iocdf.org, right there. So I answer that email personally. If I didn't get to your question, please email me. Give me a few days, but I will always, always, always answer your questions. So email me there with any questions that I didn't get a chance to answer, or if you have more questions or you want to elaborate on your question, or you have ideas, thoughts, topics, if you agree, if you disagree, shoot me an email and I'd love to talk with you. With that, let me quickly do some quick housekeeping. So, sorry, I was reading a question. I get sidetracked easily. Don't mind me. Do you have family to get help from? Contact your local NAMI organization. Absolutely. I'm so glad, Ellery. I'm so glad today was helpful. Okay, so some quick things. Today's Tuesday. Tomorrow, June 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern, our Anxiety and Athletes continues. Superstition versus compulsion. Tom will be talking to Callie Werner. If you don't know her, she was an amazing athlete and runner at Rice University. She's, I think, a therapist. I should say a clinician at the Houston OCD program. She's a phenomenal advocate, person, athlete, individual. You won't want to miss that, 7 p.m. tomorrow. As always, I want to thank the IOCDF and Jess behind the scenes for doing all her producing and support. Also, a couple things. For all upcoming and virtual streams and content, you'll want to visit iocdf.org/peace of mind, which she'll put up right there, /peace of mind. That has all the upcoming programming for all the live streams, which we have a ton of live streams right now, which is awesome because I love all the content we're doing. Also, the IOCDF is putting on 6 conferences this summer, or I should say between now and October. I see Valerie Andrews is here. We had our first ever Faith and Mental Health Conference. We had an incredible turnout. It was absolutely amazing. Go to iocdf.org/conference to check out their full schedule of conference, or the 2021 conference series. It culminates with the national conference, or the national online conference in October, which we are very, very excited about. It is in October, right? I'm having a total brain fart. Can I say that here? Oh, well, whatever. I just did. It is October, right? Okay. I don't know what I'm thinking. So other than that, you're very welcome, Deirdre, Nikki. I'm so glad you had an amazing day of VRP. You're very welcome, Kelly and Delia and Ellery. With that, if you want to be notified of all the programming the ICDF is having, in addition to the schedules, just subscribe and follow on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, LinkedIn. Just hit a subscribe button and you'll be notified every time we go live. So until then, I will be on 2 weeks. We're back on schedule. Hey, Love Lana, thank you. We're back on schedule 2 weeks from today. Just Ethan again, 7 p.m. Eastern. All right. Have a beautiful night. What an amazing conversation. Thank you, all of you, for advocating and sharing with me. I really, really appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe. Stay vigilant. Feel the feels. Don't let OCD off the hook. Challenge the really scary stuff. And I'll talk to you soon. Good night.